Hello and welcome to OST.V, and I am today speaking to the tremendously talented Fågelle, otherwise known as AKA Clara. Is that correct? Yeah.
That is correct.
And the new album, Bränn with Jord, is self-released from the Swedish musician, and it's arriving on the 27th of February. I do apologize for my Swedish pronunciations, they're not amazing. Pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you.
So I understand a lot of inspiration for this record was from the inland of Holland. Holland.
Yes.
Yeah, it's called your. It says here it's your most personal album to date because you moved back to this place. Can you tell me a little bit about this, the inspirations?
Yeah, so I moved back to my home region of Sweden. So on the west coast, southwest, but it's a region that has a lot of seaside and coast. But I come from the forests and the more middle part of this area, and I've always had this sense. I think a lot of people who come from areas sort of more on the countryside that maybe are not as sellable as the coastline and the coastal cities can have this sense that their places don't really matter. They are not they are sort of white, like blank spaces on the map, and they don't have a place in the history of this region. And I think that applies to a lot of countryside regions that are not tourist attractions or something like that. And so I've had that in mind, and coming back, I kind of wanted to put a spotlight on these places that means they mean a lot to me, and they shaped who I am as a person, and I wanted to kind of explore them with a new perspective, like from living in Berlin and living in Gothenburg, and develop as an artist over the years. I had a completely new perspective on these places, and I found completely new people that I didn't know before, and that didn't live there before, and it's been an adventure, really, like to just explore this place that it's my home and it's where I come from, but it's also I'm also exploring it in a new way, through music.
That's amazing. I mean, because there's a rich history in Scandinavian music of taking the landscape and the country and the surroundings and finding a lot of inspiration from it. I mean, Norway's famous for from its black metal culture and things like that.
Yeah.
I've spoken to many people from Scandinavia. I lived in Bergen myself, so I can understand why. It's easy to be swept away by the Scandinavian landscape. It's incredible. But I understand these recordings didn't just it wasn't just the landscape. You actually worked with local musicians and dancers to bring the region fully into the recordings. Now that's different. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yes, I've been, I really wanted to get into these community halls and these places where, where people meet, and also buildings that are sort of have been abandoned and maybe had a purpose, like an old industrial buildings and stuff like that. Excuse me. And so I've been to villages and towns and worked with, for example, Nathalie Rui, and she's actually a dancer from France who just she's an amazing dancer. She was in the biggest dancing company in Stockholm with Mats Ek back in the day, and now she's just in this little town next to where I grew up, and we really found each other, and we were just in this little community building there, and she was dragging chains around and listening to sketches of the songs, and I was recording her, and it was really cool to just work with somebody, because somebody who works with movement have a different perspective, but they're also sort of being a musician, or being a percussionist and being a dancer is really similar somehow, like it really, they are creating sounds with their body. So she had really, it was really interesting to get her like input, and a lot of that is in the on the album in different places, like as just like sort of very textural and percussive, but not by a traditional percussion player. And this lots of that in the album.
Absolutely. And that brings me neatly onto my next point. I'm going to go through some of the tracks. Now, first of all, I'm going to say that alongside Zoo, there've been two albums that have knocked me off my feet this year, and yours is one of them. And it's on
Wow.
the first track, Reeve Meg, stunning opener. Now, for myself as a producer, I use a lot of field recordings, and I love them. I think they bring a recording some humanity. And you said, you can hear that dancer you were just referring to there, and it's very intimate, but then it goes into grand, and then back to intimacy again. And I think that's really clever use of space. I mean, was that always on your mind, the importance of the space you're in, like, and getting the acoustics right for that space?
Yeah, I think on that track you also have this wind and brass orchestra. That's also a local one. That's really amazing to work with. I wrote together with an old classmate. I wrote this arrangement, and we recorded it. And also like the sound, I feel like, as a sort of field recorder and sound artist, I feel that the sense of the particularity of a space, that it's that space and that has a history, and nothing sounds exactly like that. And it was so nice to record like this orchestra in their rehearsal like hall, that it's like it was built for them in the 60s, I think. It's a very specific building. There's like a music room that just exists in this little town, and to get that in there, like I feel like I want to sort of document those places somehow, like it's because I think it gets, because sometimes sound can be very generic, and you can have a very like the idea of a reverb, the idea of a texture, and I want to really like get like it's this place at this point in time, and it relates to me, and I think you can hear that in the end. I hope so, because I think the artist that I really enjoy. And I think a lot of people have done projects like this. PJ Harvey, she did a whole like record in a church, and people do stuff like that. And I think you can really hear it in the end, like in the music.
Absolutely. I mean, I use it simply to bring humanity to good, because I do mostly electronic work, and I feel that using the field recordings and stuff like that, some people take a photo, but it's a bit like taking a photo, but you're taking a recording, and I think that captures your own personality as well a lot better. Do you think it's important these days for an artist to be like reflecting humanity in their work when you've got things like AI on the rise? And I think the only way to like provide any kind of like alternative is to make it more human. Would you agree with that?
I mean, I think that's an exciting part of the AI development, that I think and I think a lot of people are talking about this, that the sort of human touch is gonna have a higher value now,
Mm.
because that's the imperfections and the texture of human faults, and like the human touch is gonna have and AI is probably gonna start imitating that, and that's its own
Mm.
thing. But no, for sure. And I think also, I think a lot of the artists that I found really interesting, they are going back to themselves, and like, where do I come from, and what is my unique perspective, and what can I say about my experience of the world. And I think it's like it's so valuable, and I think it's so interesting, to come to really, for artists to really go back to themselves and like, what can I uniquely say? Like, what's a story I can tell that nobody else can tell, you know?
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I believe that every person is their own unique selling point and every person is unique. And I think people realize that a bit more, I think there'd be a lot more better art. But it's not only like sort of the lo-fi recording stuff. There is some very, very amazing production on this record. And especially on like the more electronic tracks. There's Alamina Nan. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah, all my names.
But that's like glitchy electronica, and it's got a bass drum in the middle of it. Sounds like a heartbeat. The way it's produced, it just sounds very like womb-like, if you like. And
Yeah.
then you erupt into these amazing jazz drums. Now, it's just a light and shade thing. Just using those drums, it just brings the light into the track. It's a real touch of genius. I want to talk to you more about the production behind this record. So, what was your production process when it came to this record?
Oh, I mean, I think you're talking about the drums. So the drummer Liam Avner, he's from my like the city where I went to like secondary school. He's actually from the coast, but we're still like we kind of grew up together. He's a little bit older than me. He was like the cool, little bit older musician. And I always wanted to work with him, and we kind of stayed in touch, but it never happened until now. And I think he's like one of the greatest drummers I ever heard. I think he's amazing. He is in Copenhagen and playing like just this like range of like jazz and pop music and everything in between. And I think he really shaped a lot of. I mean, I produce like quite like heavily, like I really get in there. It's very detailed, and I really, it's a million tracks, and it gets very
Yeah.
complicated. But it's also really important to me to keep keep the humanity and use like, so I've used his drums a lot as like scaffolding for a lot of the other things, and like I've used his timing um as a scaffolding for building out the rest of the track. And I think really love working that way, you know.
Mm.
Because you get grooves and like details that you wouldn't get otherwise, you know, if you would just be on the grid and like, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually quite fascinating because what you're essentially doing is you're building something electronic off something human, and you're extracting the groove, the imperfect groove at times. But when I say
Yeah.
imperfect, perfect to human ears, but to a computer, you know. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I find that very, very amazing. I love the fact that you stopped that track so suddenly with a tape stop, like just.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you want to kind of continue, but you also kind of want to leave people with a taste for more somehow. I don't know.
I
It's
really
just like
respect that.
how else to end it? I don't know. It's just like in this momentum there. I don't know. And then I also worked with Petter Eriksson, who has this studio in the forest of Unnaryd. It's like also deeper into the forests of this area, and he's mixed the album, and he's been a great support. Also recorded a lot of like the pianos and the drums. So yeah, it's been, but it's also been like just a million hours in on my computer and just figuring out how things can like, you know, play together and building these sort of, you know, breathing living things out of these million little um clips and fragments.
It's incredible, and I admire anybody that stops a track like that because it just shows a bit of you know how like musicians can get a bit funny, like, oh, did I do that wrong? I love a musician who'll just go right over and leave you going, what? You know, it's brilliant. But it also segues very nicely into Det blev vala bara live.
Yeah, very good.
I'm sorry. See, that track also, at the end of it, it sounds like a field recording. I've got a theory that it's not. A field recording of a car going past with a heavy techno beat. Now, did you create that techno beat? Or is that giving it away?
I love that you're asking this because it's so much work that went into this little field recording thing that nobody's going to care about probably. It's like I just had this when I started thinking about the countryside and like growing up, like what does it sound? Somebody asked me like, what does it sound like? And I'm like, it's the sound of just silence, and then like this car driving past with this like very specific car beat music, like very loud, and you hear it going past, and then it fades away into the silence. Like that's like a sound like memory I have that's very clear, and I wanted to recreate that. So I've worked with this like EDM producer Samuel Reitmeier called Daydreamer, and he made a remix of Det blev våra liv. So of this sound, so we have this very specific car like youth car culture where you have these cars that you can drive on when you're 15 because they're on a lower speed. So it's called EPA, and there's this whole like subculture around that. And there's this music that they listen to. So he did it in that sort of style, and I recruited these kids with these cars to like, can you like play this song and drive past? And I put and I put mics up outside. It was like outside my parents' house, and I was like, actually, it was a whole thing because the first guy I thought who was going to do it, his car broke down, so I had to like drive to the next village and just like try to find. Like I went to the parking lot where they hung out, and just like got one person to call another, and then we just like drove and did this thing. So it was a lot of like hassle to just get this little field recording, but it's like really important to me because it's
I love that. I absolutely. When I heard it, I was like, "No, that beat sounds like it fits with the song." So that's obviously. And then I started thinking, "Oh, I think there's a bit of thought gone. Like it's like 10 seconds, literally 10 seconds. But it's the sort of ear candy. I call it ear candy. It's stuff that makes a record. When you hear this thing, you're like, "That's clever."
And I feel like maybe you don't hear it the first time, but maybe if you listen to it again, you will like pick up on it. And I want to make something that like lasts.
Another thing I heard was sorg till ventilation.
Yes.
Right now, I heard it and I went, is she singing along to a ventilator? Yeah, and you are, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
It's
great.
like
This also taps into something that I do. I like to record machines if they're being tonal, if they're accidental music, I call it, that comes out of machines. So it made me smile. Is that how that came about? Was that the thinking?
But it's interesting. I mean, I don't know if you heard, but there was this huge like viral video with this girl singing to her like kitchen fan. So I think it's very like human for us to, harmonize with each other and just things around. Yeah, it was I've done a lot of recordings for this album that is like not part of the album. I was just around we we had this, what do you call them, the small mics that you put on your
Contact mics.
That just like interview, just like me and a friend, now my boyfriend, we just had those on for like an entire day, and we're just like driving around in his hometown, just also far in the deep into the forest and in this area, and we were just talking about things, and like I was kind of trying to interview him about like growing up in this area, and nothing of that stuck. But then we just had this moment when we heard this like this ventilation system. We were walking outside, and then we just like just very naturally started like singing to it. So that's that, you know.
It's another beautiful
Um,
moment. Yeah.
and it worked so well with the yeah, where it's at on the album with the song. Um, so yeah, it's a little fragment of a
Absolutely made me smile. And then there's a beautiful close to this record, which is very kind of it's. I looked up the English translation of the next track, but this track feels like the ender, but it's not the ender. It's a beautiful end track to, you know, I won't give too much away, but it's a piano led piece, and it's gorgeous, and it's got a lovely crescendo. And then you think, oh, that's it, the album's done. But then comes Avslutning,
yeah, yeah.
Avslutning, yeah, which translates as termination. And
Like the end, the ending, the
yeah,
ending. Yeah.
and it's a brass band.
Yeah, it's the brass band from my like home village that existed for they played together for 50 years, and they were really hard to get. I was like really on them for like 2 years and just like wanted to record them, and then I got to go to their you know, rehearsal. I actually a couple of times, and then I was just there listening and recording some bits, and then it was this moment. I mean, obviously you don't know this, but it starts with this guy just saying, "Oh, should we end on this song?" And the other guy's like, "Yeah, that's a nice ending." And then he counts in 1, 2, 3, and then they just play this beautiful like hymn. And I was just like, when I heard it when I was in the room, and also like it's this little church in my little village, like 400 people. I've you know, I grew up there. We used to have this lawn parties there, like with our computers. There was like a really open-minded church, and you know, like it's really home. And I just sat there, and there was this beautiful hymn. Uh, and I was like, this is going to be the end of the album. Like I just knew it. Yeah, and I distorted it, and you know, I just felt so good to let them like finish off this record.
Absolutely. That's great, isn't it? Because I know from there's only been a couple of times when making music that I thought, no, that's it. Did you was that your moment when you thought that's a wrap?
Yeah,
That's it. Yeah.
yeah. I was like, I think this is gonna be. I just needed to like. I think this was it. I just need to check the recording, and then I was like, yep, that's it. That's
Perfect.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it just fatefully landed like that. That's beautiful.
yeah.
That's an amazing thing. Well, it's an extraordinary album. It's out on
Thank you.
27th of February. Everyone should go and get it. It's self-released as well, which I found because I found that surprising because I was like, a record of this quality, why? How is it self-released? Is that a personal decision to stay self-released?
Yeah, yeah, I
Mm,
would say so. It just like made sense with a record like this. I think I want to really have full control of the whole process. It makes sense to me right now.
absolutely. And can we catch you live at all over the next year or so?
Yes, I mean in the UK, let's see. Hopefully, not
Mhm.
anything planned yet, but I hope so. And yeah, it's taking shape, the tour plans.
Amazing, amazing. Well,
Mm.
I look forward to one day seeing you live, and thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so happy to have you on my brand new channel. So
Mm.
thank you so much.
Thank you. It was
Yes.
lovely. Yeah.